"Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." Janelle blinked, the words hanging in the air like an unexpected slap. She glanced at Rachel, the cashier, then at the people around her. Waiting, watching. The air in the boutique thickened. A few customers shifted awkwardly, pretending not to listen, but their curiosity betrayed them. "What?" Janelle's voice was calm, but a slow heat rose in her chest. Rachel folded her arms, her expression unreadable. "We need to verify your payment." Janelle frowned. "You haven't even tried to run my card." A scoff from somewhere behind her. A woman in a beige coat whispered to her friend. Janelle ignored it, fixing her gaze on Rachel, who didn't even flinch. The silence was suffocating now. Janelle could feel the weight of 1,000 unspoken judgments pressing against her skin. This wasn't just about a transaction. It never was. Rachel sighed, barely masking her impatience. "Look, it happens. Some banks flag large purchases." Janelle's fingers tightened around the card. "You didn't even swipe it." Rachel shrugged, her voice sickeningly casual. "I just know when these things happen." The words stung, not because they were loud, but because they were spoken with quiet certainty, like an unshakable truth. Janelle inhaled sharply, scanning the faces around her. No one spoke up. No one said, "Hey, that's not right." Instead, they lingered, entertained by the spectacle of yet another black woman being treated like she didn't belong. Her pulse pounded. This was a test. Again. "Security," Rachel called, her voice carrying across the boutique. A tall man in a navy uniform stepped forward, his hand hovering near his radio. He didn't ask questions. He didn't assess the situation. He simply moved toward Janelle like this was routine. Janelle exhaled through her nose. "I haven't done anything wrong." The guard's gaze was unreadable. "Ma'am, we need you to leave." Murmurs spread through the store like wildfire. A few people raised their phones, recording, but no one intervened. The store's air conditioning suddenly felt ice cold against Janelle's heated skin. Her jaw tightened. "You're kicking me out because she won't swipe my card," Rachel scoffed. "We have policies." Janelle laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Policies or prejudice?" The guard didn't flinch. His stance was firm. The power dynamic was clear. Janelle had been through this before, but this time she wasn't leaving in silence. Janelle turned, scanning the room. A woman near the handbags pretended to admire a purse. A man by the register shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. A group of teenage girls whispered, their phone cameras catching every second of the humiliation. One of them giggled. Another nudged her friend. They weren't laughing at Janelle. They were laughing at the spectacle, at how normal this had become. A lump formed in Janelle's throat, but she swallowed it. She'd seen this before. The silent jury. The people who knew it was wrong but didn't care enough to say so. But she cared, enough to make them listen. Janelle's lips curled into a slow, deliberate smirk. She lifted her chin, the fire in her eyes burning away any trace of submission. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Rachel faltered for the first time. What?" Janelle exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "You assume I don't belong? That I can't afford what's in this store? That I'm a problem to be removed?" She took a step forward. "You didn't even check my card because you don't have to. You've already decided who I am." Rachel opened her mouth, but no words came. Janelle wasn't finished, not by a long shot. "You're wasting your time, Janelle. People like us don't make it that far." She remembered those words, thrown at her like a curse, back when she was just another kid in a cramped apartment, dreaming of skyscrapers with her name on them. Janelle Carter had spent years proving everyone wrong. From selling homemade hair products at 16 to negotiating multi-million-dollar real estate deals at 32, her climb had been relentless. Yet, as she sat in her sleek office, closing another major investment, she couldn't ignore the truth. Success had given her power, but not protection. Because in the eyes of some, no amount of money could erase the color of her skin. Janelle's grip tightened around her mother's hand. The store smelled like lemon polish and new clothes, but all she could feel was fear. The store owner's voice rang out, sharp and accusing. "Empty your pockets." Her mother's face remained still, dignity pressed into every wrinkle. "We haven't stolen anything." "Then you won't mind proving it." At 8 years old, Janelle learned the weight of an accusation. She watched as her mother turned her purse inside out, as the clerk sneered, as customers stared. Even when they found nothing, the shame clung to her. The unspoken rule was clear: her innocence would always be an afterthought. That day, Janelle made herself a promise. She would never be powerless again. Janelle's heels clicked against the pavement, echoing through the streets of her childhood. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Boarded-up shops, cracked sidewalks, a few familiar faces that hadn't aged kindly. She had come back as an investor, a powerhouse with resources to rebuild what had been neglected. But even as she walked past the same corner store from her childhood, a wary glance followed her. "Funny seeing you here," an old neighbor muttered, eyeing her designer coat. Janelle smiled, but the weight of history pressed against her. No matter how much she gave back, some people would always see her as a little girl accused of stealing. Janelle sat across from the city officials, the weight of their scrutiny evident. She had the funds, the blueprints, the backing of industry leaders, yet still the skepticism lingered in their eyes. "We just want to ensure that this project is a good fit for the community," one man said, leaning back in his chair. Janelle had heard this before, the coded language, the hesitation that never seemed to appear when her white counterparts pitched half-baked ideas. "Of course," she said smoothly. "That's why I'm here, to build, to uplift." The words were the right ones, but the doubt remained. Because to them, her success was an anomaly, and anomalies were always questioned. She straightened her posture. She had fought to get here. She wasn't about to stop now. "You're wasting your time, Janelle. People like us don't make it that far." She remembered those words, thrown at her like a curse, back when she was just another kid in a cramped apartment, dreaming of skyscrapers with her name on them. Janelle Carter had spent years proving everyone wrong. From selling homemade hair products at 16 to negotiating multi-million-dollar real estate deals at 32, her climb had been relentless. Yet, as she sat in her sleek office, closing another major investment, she couldn't ignore the truth. Success had given her power, but not protection. Because in the eyes of some, no amount of money could erase the color of her skin. Janelle's grip tightened around her mother's hand. The store smelled like lemon polish and new clothes, but all she could feel was fear. The store owner's voice rang out, sharp and accusing. "Empty your pockets." Her mother's face remained still, dignity pressed into every wrinkle. "We haven't stolen anything." "Then you won't mind proving it." At 8 years old, Janelle learned the weight of an accusation. She watched as her mother turned her purse inside out, as the clerk sneered, as customers stared. Even when they found nothing, the shame clung to her. The unspoken rule was clear: her innocence would always be an afterthought. That day, Janelle made herself a promise. She would never be powerless again. Janelle's heels clicked against the pavement, echoing through the streets of her childhood. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Boarded-up shops, cracked sidewalks, a few familiar faces that hadn't aged kindly. She had come back as an investor, a powerhouse with resources to rebuild what had been neglected. But even as she walked past the same corner store from her childhood, a wary glance followed her. "Funny seeing you here," an old neighbor muttered, eyeing her designer coat. Janelle smiled, but the weight of history pressed against her. No matter how much she gave back, some people would always see her as a little girl accused of stealing. Janelle sat across from the city officials, the weight of their scrutiny evident. She had the funds, the blueprints, the backing of industry leaders, yet still the skepticism lingered in their eyes. "We just want to ensure that this project is a good fit for the community," one man said, leaning back in his chair. Janelle had heard this before, the coded language, the hesitation that never seemed to appear when her white counterparts pitched half-baked ideas. "Of course," she said smoothly. "That's why I'm here, to build, to uplift." The words were the right ones, but the doubt remained. Because to them, her success was an anomaly, and anomalies were always questioned. She straightened her posture. She had fought to get here. She wasn't about to stop now. The subtle slights, the double takes, the skeptical glances, the unspoken challenge behind every question. Alone, they might seem small. Together, they told a story. Rachel finally swiped the card. It says declined." Janelle stiffened. "Try it again." Rachel tapped the screen, then shook her head. "Nope. You might want to check with your bank." Janelle's fingers curled into her palm. "Run it again." Rachel sighed, running it a second time. And just like that, the transaction went through. She forced a tight smile. "Oh, guess it worked after all." Janelle let out a slow breath, reining in the anger pulsing beneath her skin. She'd played this game before, being questioned, doubted, treated as if she didn't belong. She wasn't about to let Rachel see her frustration. She took the receipt, her fingers brushing against the crisp paper. "Thank you." Rachel barely nodded, already turning to the next customer. Janelle stepped away from the counter, the weight of the moment settling in. It wasn't about the bag. It never was. It was about the lingering doubt, the quiet humiliation, the knowledge that no amount of success could shield her from this reality. As she walked toward the exit, she could feel Rachel's gaze on her back. Watching, waiting, doubting. But Janelle didn't look back, not this time. The card is barely out of Janelle's hand when Rachel scoffs. "Declined." The word slices through the air. Heads turn. Conversations hush. Janelle blinks, certain she misheard. She's used this card all morning. No issues. "Run it again," she says evenly. Rachel crosses her arms, tapping manicured nails against her elbow. "No need. It's declined." Her voice is louder this time, ensuring the entire store hears. Janelle exhales, steadying herself. "Rachel, you didn't even try to process it." Rachel shrugs. "Maybe you should check your balance." A murmur ripples through the boutique. The weight of a dozen unspoken assumptions presses down on Janelle. She clenches her jaw. The whispers begin. Rachel tilts her head, lips curling into something just shy of a smile. "Maybe there's a store, more in your price range." Janelle's stomach tightens. She glances around. The other customers, the same ones who had been eyeing the expensive handbags minutes ago, are now eyeing her. Judging. Dismissing. "Run," the card. Janelle's voice is low, controlled, the kind of calm that signals a storm beneath. Rachel doesn't move. "We have policies. If a card fails once, we don't run it again." Janelle exhales sharply. "Policies or just personal preferences?" Rachel's smirk deepens. "I don't make the rules." A sharp laugh from the side draws Janelle's attention. A man behind her, mid-40s, polo shirt, smug expression, shakes his head. If you can't afford it, why pretend? A woman nearby snickers, always trying to act like they belong. Janelle's fists tighten at her sides. The walls seem to close in, the weight of their amusement pressing down like a lead blanket. Her skin burns, not from embarrassment but fury. She turns back to Rachel. You know what? Her voice is steady, her chin high. Cancel the purchase. Rachel lifts a brow, feigning surprise. Didn't think you had a choice. A few chuckles follow. The pressure in Janelle's chest builds, rage and restraint battling for control. Then a hand grips her shoulder. The guard's grip is firm, impersonal. Ma'am, I need you to leave. Janelle stiffens. Excuse me? He gestures toward the door. The store has the right to refuse service. Her pulse thunders in her ears. Refuse service or publicly humiliate customers? Rachel steps forward, arms folded. You're making a scene. Janelle looks around. The scene was made the moment Rachel opened her mouth. The moment the crowd piled on. The moment security put hands on her like she was a threat. A slow exhale. Fine. She turns, prepared to leave. Then, a newspaper on the counter catches her eye. A headline in bold, Local mall up for sale. Bids closing soon. Her mall. Understanding it dawns like a slow burn. Her gaze drifts back to Rachel, who's still smirking, completely unaware that the person she just humiliated is about to own the very ground she stands on. Janelle straightens, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Oh, Rachel, she murmurs. I'll be seeing you soon. Janelle takes a deep breath, her fingers steady as she dials. The room's tension thickens as the phone rings. Go ahead and close the deal, she says calmly, her voice unwavering. Rachel scoffs. Trying to call for backup? Janelle doesn't flinch. The weight of her words hangs in the air, unnoticed by most but already setting the wheels in motion. The whispers start. Who is she calling? What deal? The energy in the boutique shifts. Subtle but undeniable. The security guard's grip loosens slightly on her arm. The customers who had been entertained moments ago now glance at one another, sensing something bigger at play. Rachel folds her arms, rolling her eyes. Nice act, she mutters, completely unaware that in mere moments, everything around her is about to change. Rachel leans against the counter, smirking. So, what's next? You're gonna sue us for hurting your feelings? The others chuckle, but it's thinner now, less certainty in their amusement. Janelle tilts her head, her expression unreadable. She doesn't need to respond. She doesn't need to argue. Rachel gestures toward the door. Maybe you should shop somewhere, more suited to you. Janelle simply waits. A beat, then another. And then... The boutique door swings open with force, cutting through the tension like a blade. The store manager rushes in, his face pale, eyes darting toward Janelle. Rachel's smirk falters for the first time. Miss Carter? The manager stammers, barely catching his breath. I had no idea you were here. Rachel frowns. Miss who? Before she can piece it together, two men step in behind the manager, one in a suit, the other carrying a leather briefcase. The logo on his folder gleams under the boutique's lighting. Rachel's confidence flickers. What's going on? The suited man clears his throat. I'm Ethan Lawson, legal counsel for Carter Holdings. As of this morning, he pauses, flipping open the folder, his voice crisp. The sale of this mall has been finalized. The manager swallows hard. Miss Carter now owns the property. A collective inhale from the boutique. Rachel shakes her head. Number, no way. Janelle finally speaks, her tone cool. You were saying something about a store more suited for me? Rachel opens her mouth, but no words come out. The lawyer places a document on the counter. This is the official confirmation. Carter Holdings now owns this establishment along with every other store in this mall. Rachel's face drains of color. This can't be right. The manager swallows hard. It is. Janelle steps forward, her expression unreadable. You assumed I didn't belong here. A pause. Funny, I own it here. Rachel stammers, her bravado slipping. I didn't mean. You meant every word, Janelle interjects, her voice steady. And I heard them all. The security guard takes an instinctive step back, removing his hand from her shoulder as if burned. The crowd, moments ago eager to watch her humiliation, now lingers in stunned silence. Janelle exhales. Effective immediately, this store will be under review. She glances at the manager. And I expect a full report on employee conduct by tomorrow morning. Rachel grips the counter, struggling for a response. None comes. The boutique, once a stage for Janelle's humiliation, now holds its breath. Rachel's confidence is gone. The security guard shifts awkwardly. The murmurs turn into stunned, hushed awe. Janelle adjusts her bag and turns to leave. Oh, and Rachel. Rachel flinches. Be careful who you underestimate. A stunning revelation. 100 words. Janelle folds her arms, her voice unwavering. Rachel, looks like you didn't check the latest ownership update. This store, it's mine now. Rachel's smirk vanishes. That's not possible, she scoffs, but her voice cracks. Janelle tilts her head. Check with your manager if you need confirmation. But here's the short version. You work for me. Murmurs spread through the store. Rachel shifts on her feet, suddenly aware of the shifting power. You've spent the day making sure I knew I didn't belong here, Janelle continues. But it turns out I belong more than you do. Rachel's desperate plea, 100 words. Rachel's face flushes. Janelle, I didn't mean anything by it. It was just a misunderstanding. Janelle raises an eyebrow. Misunderstanding? Rachel nods rapidly. It wasn't personal. I was just following policy. I never meant to. Right, Janelle cuts in. Just following policy. Policy that only seemed to apply to me? Rachel stammers, eyes darting around. The weight of the moment presses down, and the silence from the gathered crowd is suffocating. Janelle sighs. Rachel, you made it clear how you feel about people like me shopping here, but now you need to hear how I feel about you working here. Rachel gets fired. 100 words. Janelle turns to the store manager who stands frozen. I think you know what happens next, she states. The manager swallows hard, then turns to Rachel. Hand in your badge and leave. Rachel's breath catches. You're firing me? You fired yourself the moment you refused to treat a customer with respect. Janelle replies smoothly. Rachel looks to the security guard for help, but he avoids her gaze. Her fingers tremble as she unclips her badge and slams it onto the counter. This is unfair. No, Rachel, Janelle says calmly. What happened before was unfair. This question, this is justice. Janelle walks away with dignity. 100 words. The manager clears his throat. Miss Carter, on behalf of the store, I'd like to offer you a VIP membership. Complimentary, of course. Janelle gives a small laugh. VIP treatment now that I own the place? No, thank you. I'll take my business elsewhere. The weight of her words lingers. Janelle turns on her heel, walking past the stunned faces. The customers who had laughed earlier now avert their eyes. Rachel, still standing there in disbelief, opens her mouth to speak, But Janelle doesn't give her the satisfaction. Some lessons don't need to be spoken, they're simply learned. A final warning, 50 words. As Janelle reaches the exit, she stops beside the security guard. Think twice before putting hands on someone who did nothing wrong. The guard nods stiffly, unable to meet her gaze. Janelle continues walking, not waiting for a response. The power dynamic had changed, and they all knew it. Inspiring the next generation, 50 words. Near the entrance, a young black girl stands with wide eyes, clutching her mother's hand. Janelle meets her gaze and offers a small, knowing smile. The girl smiles back, a spark of something new in her expression. Possibility. Janelle steps into the world beyond the store, knowing she left it changed. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stand up against discrimination? How did you handle it? If you were in Janelle's shoes, what would you have done differently? Your story has power. Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. Together, we can shed light on these issues and inspire change. If this story resonated with you, don't let it end here. Hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. The more we amplify these conversations, the harder they are to ignore. Every click, every share, every voice matters in making a difference. Racism thrives in silence, but so does strength and unity. Janelle's story is a reminder that power isn't just about ownership. It's about courage, dignity, and resilience. Stand tall, speak up, and support those who fight for justice. Together, we can transform pain into progress. The change starts with us.